Hi there, I'm Emily Knight and you're tuning into the Animator's Blueprint. As a student at Animation Mentor and an inspiring animator, I'm excited to share this platform with you where we meet the heroes of animation from DreamWorks, Pixar, and beyond. Each episode is a new adventure filled with career-changing advice, creative inspiration, and the inside scoop from the world's top animation studios. Whether you're just beginning your journey or mastering your craft, this vodcast is your gateway to the animation industry. Let's embark on this creative expedition together. Thank you so much for your time today, everybody. Welcome, Ere. Thank you so much for joining the Animation Mentors vodcast. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. We really appreciate you and your time today. So first question I would love to ask you is, how old were you when you got into animation?
I was just turning 20, so I was 19, 20. I think I was around 19 when I got my first offers, and then I joined the industry at 20. So I was very young. I was just still in university while I was when I started working, which I do not advise anybody do. But yeah.
Wow, what university did you go to?
I went to this small private university called Trinity Western University, which is just right outside Vancouver in Canada. And I went there for about 3 years and then couldn't afford it anymore. So I luckily had a job and I just kind of just continued doing that.
Yeah. Wow, you got a job straight. That's the first time I've heard that. That's incredible.
Really? Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So many stories where they take about 6 years till they get their first job.
Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had started my first job, but I was also animating for a lot longer before that.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Understood. Oh, okay. And please tell us about your animation journey into the career where you are now. How did you get here?
Into my career or into my current job?
Into your career, sorry.
My career, okay.
Now.
All right, got it. Well, I'm sure you've heard this a million times. I loved animation as a kid, and it was really fun. And for me, it was a thing where we weren't really allowed to watch that many cartoons, so it was always like a forbidden fruit when I got to like watch a movie or a cartoon that was animated, and I loved it. Mm-hmm. And then I remember when I had a friend of mine tell me like, oh yeah, there's this free 3D software that lets you, create animation. I'm like, what? This is amazing. And that was around the same time that I think I was like watching the behind the scenes of some movie, and I saw some people working on computers. And as a kid, I was like, wait a second. If someone's working on a computer, that means they're probably getting paid to do that. So I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. I can get paid to do animation. So sign me up right away. And then when I started with this free software, Blender, which is what I was using.
Okay, yeah.
I was just kind of like soaking up everything I could. I learned modeling and lighting, texturing, and everything just to kind of understand CG in general. And then it got to a place where I'd always loved acting. I'd always loved performance. I also kind of wanted to be a Hollywood actor, but I was a kid living in the northeast of Scotland, so that wasn't a huge possibility at that time for me. But I was like, at least I can with animation, I could be whatever I want. I could be a human, I could be a dog, I could be an alien, I could be whatever, So
yeah, I love that.
Possibilities are endless. So I just kind of started, sort of dissecting as much as I could off the internet, and I'd go to the library and I'd read books and everything I possibly could.
Wow.
And then that was around the time that Animation Mentor was starting. I was like, I want to go to Animation Mentor, but I was too young at the time. So I was like, if I can't do it, luckily they had Animation Mentor post their syllabus online. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to try to do it by myself. Yeah. Which again, it took me a lot longer, and I also made a lot of mistakes and had a lot of really bad habits along the way. But anyway, I was like, I'll do it myself, and then I started comparing my work with like students' work at the time. So I could do the ball bounce, look at the ball bounce, looks about the same. Okay, next one. Pantomime, looks about the same. Okay, next one.
Wow.
So, but that kind of worked for a couple classes, but then when it got to like the more performance heavy stuff, that was when I realized, wait, I can't teach myself acting. I need to kind of have someone critique things for me and kind of push me in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
So that was when I started kind of reaching out to professionals online and kind of seeing who would kind of give me the time of day. I spent years sending emails, and I sent thousands of emails, if not, even more. And I got to a point where it was like maybe 15 replies out of like the maybe about 1,200 emails that I sent.
Oh, okay.
But I was like, these 15 replies I'm gonna just.
I'll take 15. Yeah.
Exactly. I'll take 15 is more than 0. So, but those 15 were the most influential people. They helped me so much, and they critiqued the work that I was doing, and they were very, very helpful in trying to get me to move forward in my career, or just in my journey in general.
Mm-hmm.
And then around when I was, when I was 18, when I just graduated high school, I was animating I had been trying to learn how to animate for about 10 years at that point. So I started really young. But I remember I saw online that the Animation Collaborative, which is like a physical school, it was at the time a physical school right next to Pixar.
Uh-huh.
I saw that they're doing a demo reel review. And at the time I was living in Canada, and I was kind of thinking, well, that must be great for all those Bay Area students who get the opportunity to get real reviews. And then my parents were kind of like, hey, you and your brother, my brother's turning 21, I was turning 18. Like, hey, we can send you guys on a trip wherever you want to go. And I'm like, San Francisco, please, can we go to San Francisco? My brother was like, yeah, I'm down. So I loaded up my demo reel onto a flash drive. I'm like, okay, this is my job. This is my golden ticket. I'm going to do it. And we flew down, and I was able to show, some animators there my work. I remember there's one animator, Aaron Hartline, that I was like, I really, really, really want to get my work in front of him. I had been a huge fan of his for years and years. And I'm like, okay, I want to be able to make sure that he sees my work and he gets to critique it. So I make sure I was standing at the front of the line. As soon as the doors open, I beeline for his desk. I'm like, hi, how's it going? My name's Ere. I showed him my work, and I remember sitting down while he was showing me while I was showing him my demo reel, and I was just kind of like the entire time trying to see his reactions to the corner of my eye. And then when he finished watching it, he was like, wait, how old did you say you were? I'm like, I'm 18. And he's like, wait, and you learned how to do this by yourself? Wow. I was like, yeah. And he's like, wow, this is really good. Like, the animation is terrible, but your ideas and everything, like the way you're approaching it, that's what. And I was just kind of like, oh my God, thank you so much. I was starting to get kind of faint, and I was about to pass out. And he's like, yeah, I would love to keep in contact with you.
Wow.
And I'm like, you want to keep in contact with me? He's like, hey, give me your email. I'm trying to write my email, and my hand is shaking. I can't. Literally, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't write. My hand is shaking too much. And he's like, oh, just take my card, and let's keep in contact. I'm like, thank you so much.
Wow.
After that experience, and then one thing I will mention real quickly, just as something I'll come back a little bit later, is that on that day that I went to go do that whole thing, I went up to the gates of Pixar, and I went up to the security guard, and I was like, hey, I know that it's probably not going to happen, but if it's at all a possibility, please, may I get a tour? And he's like, well, unfortunately, no, we can't do that just because, it's a closed film set and we aren't allowed to give. But if you know someone who works here, then maybe you can get a tour. I'm like, okay. I was walking away, and I'm like, I had all this feeling of muster and all that. And I walked back and I said, sir, I'm going to work here one day. And he's like, son, if that's what you want to do, you go ahead and you chase your dreams. And I'm like, thank you so much. Wow. And then and then later on that day, we had the real reviews. And then that was when I started university. I'm thinking, yes, I've got it. I'm about to, I'm about to have all my dreams come true. All I need to do is apply for Pixar, and I got in. Right. So I applied for Pixar. The summer in my first year of university was my third time applying for the internship.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, okay, here we go. And I got another rejection. I'm like,
Oh,
man.
so number 4.
That was my third rejection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh man, that was my third rejection for that internship. So I applied to many other internships. And I was like, oh man, I thought because I know someone from Pixar, obviously that means that I should be able to get in, right? That's how that works. But what I did, which I don't advise anyone does anymore, but what I did is that I printed out my rejection letters, framed them and put them above my computer. So anytime I get tired or anything, I look up my rejections like, no, I'm going to keep going. Which again, it's not healthy. Don't advise anyone does that. But Aaron actually helped sort of like mentor me over for a few months. And then I met some other animators that helped mentor me as well. Another one was Montague Ruffin. He was also a Pixar animator. And then I remember one day in like right before the beginning of my second year, he was like, hey, could you please send me your latest reel? I said, sure, I can. Send it to him. And I'm like, oh, why did you ask? He said, oh, I just wanted to send it to the head of the department. I'm like, why would you do that? I didn't give her permission. You know, and he's like, no, it's okay. I ended up having a chat with him, the head of the department, and he was just kind of just asking me about, my life and asking me about my reel and just kind of getting, feel for me. And then the conversation ended and he's just like, yeah, I just wanted to say hi. Anyway, have a good day. I was like, okay. I don't know what that meant, but okay, sure.
I'm good, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And then at the a few weeks or so later, still at the beginning of my second year, a friend of mine who worked at Sony, he sent me a message and he was like, hey, we're hiring at Sony, you should apply. I said, I'm not going to apply. Like, first of all, I'm not good enough to get in. Second of all, I'm not going to drop out of school, even if I did get in. And he's like, nah, it's okay. Just apply anyway.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, nothing's going to happen. So sent off my reel and I just kind of didn't even think about it anymore. The entire year of my second year goes by, didn't hear a word from anybody. So I'm kind of starting to think like, you know what? No, it's really, really tough for me. I don't really think I want to do this anymore. But at the same time, there's just a lot of stuff happening in my life and a lot of stuff happening personally for me with my family, finances, and all that kind of stuff. And I got to a point where I really was just like, I don't know if this is it for me anymore. Like animation kind of seems like a pipe dream. Like how am I ever going to work in film? Like that doesn't make any sense, And I remember sitting in a field in like the like our soccer field, just sitting in the bleachers, kind of having a woe is me moment. And I said, the only thing that would make me not quit animation right now is if I got into Pixar. I kid you not. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzes and I'm like, I'll pull it out and I see an email from an @pixar.com address. And I'm like, I've gotten rejection letters before. And I'm like, this is different. I click on it and it's like, hey, are you free this summer? And I'm like, I was so excited. I like stood up and I was like shouting, running all over the place, ran back to my dorm and was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I kept reading it over and over and over again. And then a few weeks later, I get a few days actually 2 days later, I get an email from Sony being like, hey, we'd love to interview you for a couple movies. And I'm like, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like in a week, And that was like one of the biggest lessons for me, that it was at that point, like 11 or so years of mostly silence. And then boom, 3 days, my whole life completely turned,
Wow.
So from there, I got into the internship and then I did my interviews. And in the interviews, I kind of told them, hey, sorry, I don't want to leave school and I'm not going to, do whatever. And they're like, well, why did you apply if you're not going to drop out of school? And I'm like, well, I didn't think I was going to get an interview. I'm sorry.
I didn't think I was going to get this far.
I just kind of just throw it and just kind of whatever. And they're like, okay, let's see what happens. Have a good day. Bye. I thought, well, at least I have Pixar. That's great. Pixar is a great, opportunity. So on my first day of Pixar, I get there and again, Felt unreal. Walking up to the gates, get to the security guard. It was the same security guard from 3 years earlier. And I was like, I said, hi, Bubba, my name is Ere. And he said, okay, cool. Here's your badge. Have a nice day.
Wow.
I said, you probably don't remember me, but I was here 3 years ago and I told you I will be here one day. And he was like, gets out of the booth, comes and gives me a big hug and is like, congratulations, son. Welcome to Pixar. He comes, opens the gates for me. And it was the most unreal experience. And then halfway through my internship, I get a call from Sony and they were like, hey, so sorry it took us so long to get back. We've never done this before, but if you're interested, I know you don't want to drop out of school, but if you're interested, we'd be willing to work out like a part-time thing for you. So you can do school full-time and then you can work part-time at Sony.
What?
And I was like, what is happening? How is this my life right now? Yeah. And then that was that year. And then I finished off the internship. Then a couple months later, I started at Sony at the same time as being in my third year of university, which again, do not advise doing. It was difficult. So yeah. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about time management, learned a lot about priority, but things I've long forgotten. Not that I don't have to worry about that as much, but that was that. And then there've been ups and downs for sure, but that was kind of the start that really kind of helped kind of shape what my idea of possible and impossible were, which I'm extremely and extraordinarily lucky to have had.
Wow, amazing journey. I love your story. I applied to Pixar as well, and I'm applying to internships now. And I also started out with Blender.
Yes.
That was a difficult thing without school. I was trying to learn YouTube videos, and I was like, I don't know what.
Hours. Yep.
It was so hard. That's amazing. Yeah. Love your story. How fun.
Thank you.
So how long was your Sony job?
I was at Sony so the Pixar internship was 3 months, and then I was on Sony for about 8 months or so.
Wow, okay.
So the end of 2017 into the beginning of 2018.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice, yeah. And with your Pixar internship, what did you learn from that? I'm so interested.
Man, I felt like it was a complete like destruction of everything I know and rebuilding back up again.
Oh, so no way.
It was a thing of like, in the internship, they kind of start you from, doesn't matter whatever your experience is, they start you from ball bounce, then walk cycle, then pantomime, then dialogue. And that's like kind of what it is. And then it kind of breaks everything down that you would think, and like teaches you a whole new way of animating, teaches you a whole new way of thinking. What I felt was one of the greatest things for me was that they, again, taught me how to learn. They taught me how to think for myself. They taught me how to kind of question, and they kind of instill this mentality in me of just like, what's the best choice? Why? Always asking who, what, when, where, why is my character doing this? Who is my character? Why are they the way they are? What do they want? Blah, 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 all these different things. And I was kind of really, that in addition to I also did theater growing up. So like that, in addition to all of that, was just this feeling of like, animation is not just about moving things. Anyone can learn how to move things, but I'm going to say this in the most cheesy way. Like only anybody can learn how to move things, but only animators can move people.
Oh,
there we go. Stop. No, but it's true, and I think it's really important to like to really understand surely what it means to like to animate a truthful performance. And I think Pixar really helped kind of set me up on that path.
Wow, gosh, I would love to get into an internship so badly.
Me too.
So speaking of internships, how many did you apply throughout your journey before you started getting your bigger jobs? Apprenticeships, I know DreamWorks has fellowships. I applied to that one as well.
Good.
Tell us the process about that.
I could not for the life of you tell me, or I cannot for the life of me tell you how many internships I applied for, because there was a point where I was every day applying for 5 or 6. So it was, and that was for like months and months, because I was just like applying everywhere. I wrote so many cover letters. I'm gonna be very honest. I just took a template and just like if there's anything specific, just like I would always research the company and add something specific into the sentence. Like, oh, cool, and I'll send it off. But I applied to a lot, and I got a lot of rejection letters. Funnily enough, Pixar was the only place that accepted me the year that I applied, and I was like,
wow.
So you can imagine my feeling of applying for Pixar, having not gotten it multiple times, and then applying for everything else, games, TV, feature, everything. But no, every place was denying me. So I thought, I guess I'm a worthless animator. But at the end of the day, it's not really about like, okay, well, it's not really about how many jobs you get. It's about kind of like the meaning of the work that you're actually doing.
Yeah.
But if that answers your question, like I think it's important to just kind of keep on applying and find and not feel like you're bigger than anything. And I think that was another important thing, is like making sure that you're not turning your nose up at a job just because like, oh, I'm not going to work in blank because I'm better than blank,
Yeah,
No.
Exactly. Yeah. So you applied to video games, TV shows, production companies, and animation companies?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I think part of probably what was in my, what's the word? Something that was a detriment for me was not being Canadian, and I'm still not Canadian, nor am I American. I'm British. However, they never, like, anytime they asked me like what my nationality was, because of visa reasons, the States for some reason is really good with dealing with international interns and apprentices, but everywhere else kind of makes it a lot more complicated to intern if you're not, either from the country.
Oh.
So being very, very mindful about, like, sometimes it's just your passport that's not the issue, but sometimes the passport can be something that you have to kind of figure out what are the best options with the specific passport that you have.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Okay. You're British?
I am British. I grew up in a lot of different places, so that's why my accent sounds North American, but I am British.
Wow, that's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So when applying to jobs, what should be on the resume? What do you need to be really good at? And you can say mastered, that will speak volume. And for sure, you need to have this skill to get a job.
A lot of my students get annoyed with me, I'm sure, because every question I respond with, it depends. So again, it depends. But in this time, it depends on what jobs you're applying for. It depends on when you're applying for. It depends on what the availability of the job is, all these different things. But most I can talk about is what I'm experienced with. So if you're applying for something like in feature, especially like if you're applying for like, Disney or Pixar or DreamWorks.
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't matter if you're a student, professional, master, or whatever. You need to be a master of the fundamentals of animation.
Okay.
Like once you're a master of the fundamentals of animation, that is a gateway to being like, oh, so you know the craft, you know it very well, you know how to apply it in different ways. That is number one. Number two, you need to be able to have an opinion and be able to convey your opinion through your work. So what sort of movies do you like to watch? What sort of performances mean something to you? How do all these sort of things inspire you, and how can you apply that to your work, and how can you convey that successfully through the medium of animation? And that's kind of the thing. Animation is just a medium. It's not a genre or anything like that. So how can you make sure that you know what you want to make, and you're just using animation as a vehicle to be able to make that? That's the most important thing for me, is just show me that you have an opinion through your work, either with specific performances, your taste in media, whatever it is.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Can you go over the fundamentals, please?
Absolutely. So that, I mean, by fundamentals, it's just class one stuff. So your squash, stretch, posing, your strong posing, your ease-ins, ease-outs, everything. So there's 12 principles, but really truly understanding like the different ways of using that. So let's take arcs for an example. Arc isn't just, oh, look at this arm, it's going all over the place. It's thinking about like, how can I use my arcs to make sure that my mouth corners are polishing really nicely? How can I use arcs to make sure that the nose tip is kind of like, isn't just kind of going in a stiff line. But on top of that, also knowing when to break the rules for very specific purposes. You know, being a master of the rules gets you to 95% really quickly. But that last 5% is knowing what and when you should break, what rules and when you should break each one of them in order to make sure that you're getting the feel of your shot across accurately, you know? So it's, again, it's understanding fully how squash and stretch is used. It's not just like the entire body squashing and stretching. It's like different places. How can I squash and stretch the eye mask? How can I squash and stretch the mouth? All these different things can really play into how appealing your work is, how, you know, entertaining it is to watch, and how believable it is.
Wow, yeah, definitely master your fundamentals. Once you got that foundation, then honestly, the rest of it, I won't say easy peasy, but it helps way more.
It really does.
Yeah, you'll have less questions. I'm learning that now.
Yeah, and I think that's true. Like it doesn't make it easy peasy for sure, but it does make it a lot less. You do have a lot less sort of questions. Like you generally always have tools in order to be able to try and attack certain problems. Mm-hmm. So you have like, okay, why is the weight feeling off? Okay, let me look at the drawing, which is like the pose. Let me look at the pose. Is my pose balanced correctly? Okay, is the silhouette working really nicely? Is the line of actions working? Like all these different things are, again, just like the different tools in your tool belt to be able to like attack certain problems. Animation at the end of the day really is just creative problem solving.
Creative problem solving.
The nth degree, yeah.
Seriously. So, do you have a LinkedIn?
I do. I love LinkedIn.
With LinkedIn, for those, let's say you just graduated school, now you're ready to start applying jobs, what have you. What should our LinkedIn look like per se? Bio, what skills should I put on there? Expertise, should I have that I graduated school? What should I put that can capture everyone?
Generally, I find it that as long as I can find your reel very, very quickly on your LinkedIn, I want to be able to click on your LinkedIn. I can see what, you know, the top line things are important to you. If you want to say like, what's important to me is drama, or what's important to me is, you know, high level, whatever it is important to you, I would love to see that at the beginning. I scroll down a little bit. I want to be able to see your demo reel right there, say front and center. If I can watch it, either go to Vimeo or YouTube or whatever it is you want to do. But scroll past there, I want to see that experience. If you don't have any experience, I want to see if there's any educational history. Now, the thing is, and I'm going to be very honest about this, your educational history doesn't really matter all that much when it comes to getting specific jobs. The only thing that matters is your reel. Yeah. If you say, "Oh, I went to CalArts" on your resume, cool, good for you. What does your reel look like? You know, right. I went to Animation Mentor. Cool, good for you. What does your reel look like? It doesn't matter where you went. It doesn't matter who you know. What matters is your reel. Like who you know can help you get certain conversations going with certain people, and that is important. Networking is important, but you're not going to be able to get hired unless you have the skills to back it up. Exactly. You know, and that's kind of the most important thing for me. So who you are, what you've done, where you've been is the most important thing for a LinkedIn.
Perfect. Okay. And speaking of reels, what should a reel look like? How the best tips for the best reel? Absolutely.
For me, when putting together a reel, you should be able to classify your shots into A, B, and C shots. A shots being the best stuff you've ever done, B shots being really good, but not like the best things you've ever done. And C shots being, again, not as good as B shots, but still there. So your A shots should come first. Your B shots should come second. And your C shots should not be on your reel. You should not ever have your C shots. You should never put anything that is not the best work that you've ever done on your demo reel. A show reel is different. Like you can, these are different. This is just kind of semantically different. Like a show reel is like, well, this is all the stuff that I've done, or a progress reel or something like that. That's fine. Put as much stuff as you want on there. But when you're applying for jobs, really make sure that you are putting your best foot forward and ending with your best foot. You want to make sure you're sandwiching your shot with your reel with only great work. Okay. Something that kind of helps with that is just kind of being very, very vicious with how you cut down your reel. Even though there's a shot that you could have spent months on and you love it and you did it years ago and you're so proud of it. If it's not holding up to the best work you've ever done, cut it from your reel. I've done that very recently where I'm like, but I love that shot, but it's not as good as everything else I've done. So I have to cut it from my reel because it's not up to where it needs to be, you know? Yeah. The best reels I've seen or some of the best reels I've seen, especially student reels, are 3 shots long, 3 to 5 shots long. I'm not looking for 10 shots of like, here's my walk cycle and here's my blah, blah, blah. I want to see your 3 best shots that showcase the range that you can do. That's all I want to see. If you only have 3 shots that are great, that's all I need to see. If I want to see more, I'll ask for more, but I want you to capture my attention and leave me thinking about, oh, I want to see more. You know, that's all that's really, really important.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask how long should it be? How many shots should you include? So I like the concept A, B, and C. Okay. So I get to make one, but I was wondering, I was like, I didn't want to make a demo reel, but because I only thought there was one type of reel, which is demo reel, and I'm still in school. So I was like, oh, these aren't, that crazy good. But you said there's progress reels?
There's progress reels, yeah. And that's something that like, you can just say, here's everything that I've been working on. Here's something, and that's something that you do every single semester at Animation Mentor. Like you, every semester starts with your progress reel and whatever else you need to do for that assignment. And that's kind of like so your mentor can know where you've been and where you are right now, and that a progress reel has its benefits for sort of academic, what's the word to like try and figure out where you are, aptitude or whatever. So it's just trying to figure out where things
where you got it where you
exactly, yeah, you kind of know what things you need to focus on.
So when this is a good question when applying to, so say you're still in school, you're about a year in, and you want to start applying to internships, apprenticeships, fellowships. You don't really have a demo reel yet. It would be okay to put a progress reel. In your opinion, do you think so? Would that be, or would it even be worth it?
I think if you are just finishing class 1 and you're trying to apply for internships, I highly encourage you to always apply and always try and see how much more you can grow from there. Don't be disappointed if you don't get a job right off the bat. It takes time, and that's if you just finished class 1, that means you've been animating for 3 months, And again, don't be disappointed by that. However, if you're just coming out of Animation Mentor, you've been doing it for a while, you've done class 6, and now you're applying for jobs. Again, just put your 3 to 5 best shots on your reel. It doesn't really matter the number specifically. It's just cutting down your work to your absolute best work. A and B shots only. B shots, if you can just stick with only A shots, great, and just stay there. But if all you have is a progress reel, go ahead and apply. Something I think is really, really important is, and something that I was told that helped me at some point was knowing that people are watching your progress along the way, knowing that people can see your work. And if you are animating, again, this is me getting on my pedestal for a little bit. If you're on a pedestal on my soapbox, if you're animating with opinion, people are going to remember your work. It doesn't matter if it's a ball bounce. It doesn't matter if it's a super subtle emotional acting shot. If you're animating with opinion, your work is going to stand out, you know?
Wow.
And on top of that, people are going to be able to remember, like, oh, I remember the ball bounce assignment they did last year. Oh, so good. What are they doing now? Oh, sweet. I can see that they've grown this much in a year. Amazing. By next year, hopefully, if I see they've grown this much, great. But if they've grown this much, then I know, like, maybe I can take a risk on them. Like, okay, well, if they've done this much by themselves, let me see if I can help them get here, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's just all about, like, understanding that everybody has growth. Everybody has a journey, and you shouldn't feel upset. You shouldn't feel kind of like too nervous. Like, oh, I shouldn't apply. I'm gonna get rejected. Sure, you might get rejected, and then you move on to the next thing. You go on to the next one, but you need to understand that, like, people are watching your growth, and that's really, really important to kind of keep in your mind.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that because I just got rejected from one, and I was like, I wasn't too upset because it's like, I'm just starting, you know. But I want to do it for the experience, so I could get comfortable doing this type of stuff.
Yeah,
and hopefully, by some luck, I get accepted. But I didn't even think about it that way. That next time I do apply, they'll be like, hey, I think I remember that girl. She's
exactly.
That's amazing. Yeah. And so. Speaking of job openings, how do you hear about these? Is it through networking, LinkedIn, the company website? What's the process that you usually take?
So earlier on, it was just all scouring the internet. I would go to every place that I knew, and I would Google, I think, had this function where it was like, did you mean or something? So I would always like try to type in any sort of games company, any sort of animation, TV, anything, just to try and see what was out there and just apply to everything, you know?
Yes.
Even if it was like, oh, I'm senior level. No, I'm not senior level. I'll just like apply anyway. It doesn't matter. I'll see what I can get, you know? Never feel like you should not or cannot apply to a job just because you do not have the experience for it. Go ahead. Who's stopping you? Who's going to stop you from clicking submit?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
The only person that'll stop you is yourself. But from there, what I found generally is that a lot of times, like when you're in the industry, you kind of like, you start to know people, and then people tell you about job openings, or like you see a job opening and or recruiters contact you, or you contact recruiters, and blah, 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 blah. For me, I found something that was very, very helpful was keeping a list of recruiters and keeping a list of people that I've talked to, and make sure that, like, I know that not necessarily just talked about people that I've talked to about jobs or have interviewed with, and just being like, hey, how's it going? Are you still hiring? And just kind of checking in now and then just to see, just to kind of see what's happening in the world of the industry, and to kind of see if you can, if there's any openings, if you're looking for a job, and maybe if you're not looking for a job, being sort of like aware of the landscape of the industry, and just kind of know like what work is like out there in case you know you do need to change. Because the fact of the matter is, for a lot of people, I would say the majority of people in the industry, it's very, very, very contract based, and it's very kind of a lot of shorter contracts, a lot of kind of like, okay, well, you can get 3-month one here, 1 year one here, 6-month one here, and you kind of have to bounce around a lot, especially at the beginning. But sometimes those contracts can get longer and longer and longer. Sometimes you can get like a 2-year contract, or you can get a staff contract. But definitely at the beginning, I had to do it, and a lot of my friends had to do it, bouncing around a lot, just trying to make sure that you're staying employed is important, which is, again, that passport comes in very handy to be able to bounce around. But keeping aware of the job landscapes. I know there's a lot of great, like, brand new opportunity, brand new sort of platforms that kind of are always posting what jobs are available, and you can sign up for them, and you can like put your preferences, and it kind of automatically matches you with recruiters and stuff. But keep your ear to the ground with the industry, and keep your passport up to date. You'll be good.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned you could go up to a 2-year contract. So when a company does that contract with you, in that 2 years, are you being assigned different movies, or that's how it works, right?
It depends. So it depends on a lot of different things. The first thing is, like, if you're getting hired for a project or if you're getting hired to the company.
Got it.
Most times, if you're getting a contract, that contract is for that project. And sometimes you can get your contract extended for another project or your contract extended for another thing. Sometimes you'll get hired on as an employee or hired on as a salaried, whatever person. And then that will just have you on like, I'm just employed as part of the company, and it doesn't matter what the project is going on. I would just kind of jump wherever I'm needed. But those are more so like staff contracts rather than like project contracts. Mm-hmm. But I would say 9 times out of 10, I don't have the actual numbers, but I would say 9 times out of 10, a contract is based on the project.
Oh, okay. Understood. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Wow. Awesome. Yeah. And so where you are now, is there any challenges that you still face to this day, whether they're old ones that you still haven't gotten yet or new ones that have come about?
I think absolutely. Like if I ever were to say, oh, I don't struggle with anything in animation, like that's a blatant lie, I think for me, all the things that I've struggled with always, I will always continue to struggle with. And I think the reason is that the more I do those things that I struggle with, the better my eye becomes. And the more I'm like, wait, I thought this was difficult. I got here. Now I think this is difficult that I come here. Now I realize that this is difficult that it comes here. Then I realize that it's all kind of a lie and everything is like, it's all kind of difficult. And I'm like trying to refine, certain things. And sometimes I spend a lot of time focusing on acting. My body mechanics starts to suffer, and then go to body mechanics to get really good at body mechanics again, and acting starts to suffer. And then it's always kind of like trying to, they do body mechanics with acting. And that's just like, okay, well, I can't really get good at both things at the same time or whatever, but it's very, I find body mechanics very difficult for me, but I also find it the most fun sometimes. I find certain types of acting very difficult, but I also find it the most fun. Sometimes always depends on my mood. But I would say like one of the biggest things that I'm like, I find that a lot of animators kind of go through sort of seasons and phases. Yeah. It's like sometimes people just kind of get hyper focused on, I want to master finger animation, or like, I want to master blinks, or I want to master shoulder animation. I feel like for me, I'm really, really trying to master texture in the head, and it's really trying to make sure that I'm getting in the head, like the physical head, and make sure that I'm getting like the right sort of like tiny little shakes and movements so it doesn't feel, so it feels just a little bit more believable. And I find that's like, every time I try to animate something and I'm like, that doesn't feel right. Move a key one frame. That feels worse. Okay, move the other way. Doesn't feel enough. Okay, how do I put it on the middle frame? That feels weird. And it's just like, I feel like that's something I'm always trying to figure out. Like, what are these? How do I like just dial everything in just perfectly so that it like works the way that I want it to work, And I love that. Like, I'm very, very lucky to be working at Disney, and what I get to do now is like look at shots that I've admired for years and like going to their graph editor and be like, how in the world did they do thing? Oh, wow. But I feel like I'm doing the same thing. Okay, let me try and like create like my own copy of the file. I'm like, let me try and adjust it. I broke it. Why is it? It's so hard, So it's just like a constant journey with this kind of stuff. But
wow, awesome. Yeah, it feels good to hear. Now, I won't say it feels good, but it's kind of a relief to hear that people who you're in your career now and thriving, to hear that you guys still have struggles and you guys still face challenges. This is something that this is something that you'll probably never perfect. There's always going to be something that, so that it's really relieving. It kind of throws some stress off my shoulders.
Good. Yeah. Throw it off.
Yeah. And so the last question is, what is the best piece of advice or pieces of advice that you can give to animators?
I would say 2 things, and I say it with full sincerity and full honesty. First thing is sleep. You need to sleep. You generally need to make sure that you are being able to think, because I find that animation a lot of the times is, again, it's creative problem solving. So the more time you sit just kind of thinking about a problem and not being able to have a problem, I found for myself, when I sleep and when when my mind is rested, I can attack these problems a lot quicker, a lot more, and with a lot more sort of like, with a lot better ideas, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the most important thing for me. And I would say the second thing is what I had been touching on earlier is if you do not have your voice you do not have your artistic voice, or you don't have, that, continue and make it a priority for you to develop your opinion. It's so important to have an opinion in animation and in art in general, because why are we doing this if we're not expressing ourselves? Why in the world would you choose animation as a career if you're not actually getting to express yourself as accurately as possible, And if you don't know what you want to express, ask yourself, go outside, go and look at the world, and go and look at what matters to you, and come back and tell me what matters to you through your work. If you go outside and you're like, I just really like comedy, I just really like the way people laugh, and I really like making people laugh, I want to see that. If you go out and you're like, well, I find I connect a lot with the way that people just kind of move, and like I just found that like every time someone walked, every step everyone took, it was so fascinating. Come back and show me that in your work, whatever it is that you love, go outside and find it. Go outside and just like observe and live and see what makes you respond, whether positive or negative, respond to something and find a way to tell it through your work. What is your opinion? Who are you? Why are you you? That's what I want to know. I think that's, for me, the best piece of advice I can give for young animators is go and find out what you care about and come back and show me.
Wow. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for everything today. I learned so much. It's been 45 minutes and I learned so much, and I'm going to write down all of the notes. But thank you so much. I appreciate your time today, and I can't wait for podcast to come out. And yeah, thank you so much. You have a great rest of your night.
You too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of The Animator's Blueprint. Our heartfelt gratitude goes out to Animation Mentor for sponsoring our podcast. To show our appreciation, we invite you to visit animationmentor.com/podcast. Here you can download a complimentary animation ebook. It's packed with valuable insights for animators at every level. It's our gift to you for subscribing. Keep animating your world, and we'll see you in the next episode. Stay creative.